In a previous video titled How to Maximize Pothos in a Fish Tank, I talked about the explosion of growth that occurs when you allow pothos roots to grow down through the water column and tap into the substrate of your tank, particularly if it is a dirt substrate. Well, what if there was a planter that allowed us to safely bring some of that dirt substrate closer to the surface, thereby allowing the pothos or whatever other houseplant you're growing to tap into those nutrients immediately, giving you that lush, magical growth from day one? Well, today on Plant Life Project, we're going to explore this idea further, and I'm going to show you some experiments that I've been conducting on a new kind of riparium planter. Well, before we go on, I want to take a moment and give a shout out and a thank you to someone who has been really a mentor to me on the subject of deep substrates. And some of you may already know that I'm talking about Father Fish. He is a terrific teacher with so much scientific yet accessible and practical knowledge about fish keeping, aquatic plants, deep substrates, ecosystems, and beyond. I learn something new every time I watch his videos, and I'm confident that you will too. So if you have not met Father Fish yet, do check out his YouTube channel. I have the link for it in the description below. Let's get back to talking about this new riparium planter that I mentioned a moment ago. And I want to show you the thought process and the design behind this new planter, and then we'll go out to the greenhouse and check out some of the experiments. So this container is from IKEA, and it's really an ideal size and shape to make this new riparium planter out of. It even has a hanger or a hook on the back, and it's a pretty dense plastic. Kind of feels like PVC. I'm not sure exactly what type of plastic it is, but here on the front I have the diagram drawn out. This is how we're going to bring the substrate closer to the surface. We're going to put 1 inch of dirt in the bottom, and we're going to cap it with 2 inches of sand. Now, this is the formula that Father Fish recommends should be used in the entire tank. And the sand layer is going to act as a barrier, keep the dirt, keep the organic material sequestered and separate from the water column. And the top layer is going to have holes drilled all the way around, all 4 sides. And so that's going to allow water to come in and flow through this top layer only, but it's also going to let the plant roots grow out into the water column. So the plant is still going to be able to filter the water. So let's assume that your tank has a dirt substrate, and we want to get some pothos cuttings started in this planter. So some of the pothos roots are going to grow down into the planter substrate, and then other roots are going to be growing out of the holes in the top few inches of this planter. Now, long term, we still want these roots to grow down to the bottom of the tank substrate, but by getting it started in this planter, it's going to grow that lush, beautiful foliage a lot sooner than having to wait for these roots to grow down to the bottom of your tank. So this is a good way to jumpstart your pothos. But of course, we can grow other plants in this type of planter as well. So let's go out to the greenhouse now, and we'll take a look at some of my experiments that I have going. So I have 3 different plants that I'm experimenting with. Turn this off. 3 different plants I'm experimenting with in this new planter. The first one is going to be pothos. And this is the exact container that I showed you a few minutes ago, and of course you can't see inside of it, but you can see I drilled the holes in it, and above the sand I put a layer of rock, mostly lava rock. And so what I'm hoping with this experiment is to see the pothos roots growing out through the holes of this container. All 3 of these plants I'm going to show you are still in the early stages of this experiment, so we may not see much root growth right now, but this does demonstrate the principle. So the second plant I have is a canna lily, and it's put on a good bit of new growth, so I think it's really liking this setup. Now these containers are clear. This is just a Gatorade bottle, but I wanted them clear so that I could see what's going on inside, and definitely see a lot of roots growing through the sand into the dirt substrate. And here are some roots coming out of holes I drilled in the side. So this was the first plant that I planted in this type of container, and so it's going to have more growth than the others. But again, I have a layer of rock on the top above the sand, and yeah, so having that dirt substrate at the bottom capped with the sand, it really keeps that organic matter from leaching up into the water column. All right, the third plant I have is a Dracaena daramensis. I think this particular variety is called Limelight. Another clear container, as you can see. And I'm not seeing any root growth yet. This was probably the most recent one that I planted, but it has been putting on new foliage, so that's a good sign. Yeah, I have holes drilled and also rocks above the sand. So over time, I'm hoping with all three of these plants to see that root growth coming out of those holes. And there's you can see my blue male guppy in there. This is one of my little breeding tanks for the summer, so I'm hoping to get more blue fish off of him. So anyway, that is those are the experiments so far. Well, hopefully your takeaway from this video will not only be this new planter idea, but also just the value of experimenting. It's a great way to continue learning and to build on other ideas, so don't ever be afraid to conduct your own experiments. Sure, sometimes they fail, but sometimes a whole new world opens before you. Well, give me a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this content today, and let me know in the comment section below if you would like to see more experiment type videos like this in the future. Well, thanks for watching, and remember, it's all about the plants.